The sandwich is practically an American institution. It is a basic essential for lunchboxes, parties, and picnics.
Have you ever been curious about the sandwiches that graced everyone's dinner tables back in the day? Well, today we'll be talking about a few of the most popular ones. Let's dive into it. 1. Creamed corn sandwich. This lunchtime classic was pretty easy to make. It's really just a sandwich mostly filled with creamed sweet corn kernels at the end of the day. Just spread some cheese, sprinkle in some veggies and herbs of your choice on sweet corn and buttered bread, toss it in a panini press and you have your lunch ready to go. This used to be the perfect snack to go with a long school way or a stressful day at work, and a favorite for the people living the busy lifestyles of the past. But as tastes shifted and the times changed, creamed corn sandwiches sadly fell out of popularity. It's still a favorite among people with older tastes, and is a semi-popular alternative for people who prefer a more vegetarian diet, as long as they're making it at home. Only a fraction of restaurants still have this lunchtime delight on the menu. If you're looking for a low-calorie sandwich that is also already incredibly tasty, there probably are better options. But how many of them are easy to make? If you love some good cheese on your food and you're trying to explore healthier snack options, you'll love the heavy lifter coming up next. 2. Pimiento cheese sandwich. The pimento cheese sandwich is another great American classic. Hearing the name alone is probably enough to have you full of nostalgia if you were around during those times. This sandwich and other cheese sandwiches became the favorites they did in the early 20th century as a result of the growing prominence of cheese as an important ingredient in the American household. It's also incredibly simple to make. The recipe is just a mix of mayonnaise, warm milk, shredded cheddar, and pimento peppers spread over a fresh slice of bread. While it is true that the tasty treat originally came from the north, the pimento sandwich we know and love today was a southern staple, mostly due to the abundance of pimento peppers in the region. With time, the sandwich fell out of popularity due to shifting tastes and the introduction of more convenient dining options, but the pimento cheese sandwich still gets a lot of love in households even today. The secret to the pimento cheese sandwich and its popularity is all in the sauce. Beyond just being a sandwich spread, it could be used as a side dish or to garnish burgers in a barbecue, just to name a couple. The next sandwich on the list is also a delicious side dish, which might have fallen in popularity, but is still the perfect snack. 3. Anchovy paste sandwich. Been a while since you heard that one, right? This amazing sandwich was a major staple of the 50s and 60s. It was everywhere in pop culture at the time, so much so that it was a significant plot point of the 1960 James Bond film, For Your Eyes Only. And although it's a bit more complicated to make than some of the others on this list, it's still a pretty simple snack. All you need is some anchovy fillets, breadcrumbs, milk, olive oil, pepper, some cucumber and butter, and a couple of toasted slices of bread. Crush the anchovies, add the breadcrumbs, olive oil, milk and pepper. Mix it all together till you get a nice, smooth paste. Add in the cucumbers, then spread all over bread, give it a nice little toast, and it's ready to eat. It's not for everyone, especially if you're not a fan of anchovies. But if you don't mind that, this is a great sandwich to try out, both in terms of health and taste. Plus, the anchovy-based spread is an extremely versatile condiment that goes well with a variety of meals. It's a huge shame that treats as great as this one and the next on the list eventually got lost to time. 4. Bacon and peanut butter sandwich. Saying bacon and peanut butter sandwich is an amazing sandwich kind of sells it short. Bacon and peanut butter is addicting. It's strange that it became such a huge hit because a bacon and peanut butter combo doesn't really sound like something that's supposed to work. It's just as simple to make as it is delicious, so it's not a shocker that it became as big of a hit as it did in the 50s and 60s. All you needed was some peanut butter, a couple of banana slices, and some strips of bacon spread all over a couple slices of bread, and you had your snack. If you look at it from the nutritional angle, it's all you need to get through a stressful day. This sandwich is a major cheat code, but like with most things of that era, changing tastes gradually phased the treat out of our general consciousness. Peanut butter and bacon is still a favorite in many American homes, though, and if you don't mind experimenting with some slightly unusual food combinations, you should try it out sometime. You could add some ketchup to the spread, or maybe pack the bacon with browned onions if you want to really bring out the flavor. Either way, it'll hook you from the first bite, just like the next sandwich on the list. 5. Mock ham salad sandwich. This sandwich was made for times when you had everything you needed for a ham sandwich, but the ham. Apart from how easy to make it was, the other reason for the popularity of this sandwich in the 50s was how easy to get and affordable the ingredients were. And most important of all, it was just really tasty. It was the perfect sandwich for the time that it was created, because it was basically just a treat made of all the stuff that would otherwise have been discarded as leftovers in the average kitchen. All you need to make it is some ground bologna, some finely chopped hard-boiled eggs, some finely chopped onions, some finely chopped sweet pickles, and mayonnaise. Just combine all of that in a bowl, leave it to refrigerate, and you had the perfect spread for your sandwich buns. But over the years, as meat became significantly more affordable and way cheaper to get, it didn't make a lot of sense to cook up a mock ham sandwich instead of just making a real ham sandwich. So the tasty treat faded to time. Mock ham salad sandwich is still pretty popular among people looking for meat-free alternatives to the more popular sandwich options. Alternatives like the next sandwich on the list. 6. Bologna salad sandwich. It's rumored that this sandwich was created in World War II as a meal that could be easily rationed for the soldiers that would be spending weeks on end out on the battlefield. Regardless of how true that is, this sandwich was in every household and every picnic in the 1950s and 60s. To make it, all you need is some bologna, hard-boiled eggs, some creamy salad dressing, and a sweet pickle relish to top it off. Start by grinding the bologna and the eggs in a meat grinder. Stir it with the salad dressing and leave it to refrigerate for a couple of hours. Take it out and spread it on some sandwich buns, maybe toast it if you want something hot, and there you have it. The sandwich of a lifetime. The bologna salad sandwich was everything a person needed to get through the busy lifestyles people led back then. It kept really well, the ingredients were extremely easy to get, and it was really tasty as a plus. But as the chapters closed in the 60s, hearty survival foods started to outlive their need. Regardless of its current popularity or lack of it, the bologna salad sandwich still continues to be a favorite at dinner tables across the globe. The next sandwich on the list sadly couldn't keep as long. 7. Fried Spam sandwich. It was hard times in World War II. Good food wasn't easy to come by, and the usual protein options were scarce. This created the perfect conditions for the boom in sales that Spam would see when it launched in 1937. It was cheap, super convenient to store, and easy to cook. It quickly became the most available source of protein, and the only source of protein for many households, so they started to use it in everything. The one recipe that naturally caught on the most of them all was the Spam sandwich. It was everything the hard workers of that era needed. Healthy, cost-effective food that was easy to make. All that you needed was some grilled Spam and a slice of cheese topped off with some mustard or mayo, served on a slice of toast, and you were good to go. Spam sandwich was everything it needed to be for the era it was made for. After the hardship of the post-war years ended, though, and meat stopped being scarce, the once invaluable lifeline quickly outlived its usefulness. People still treat themselves to variations of Spam sandwich across the world, so if you're thinking of trying it out, you're not alone. The next one on the list is very similar to the Spam sandwich, mostly because both are from the same era. 8. Egg and sardine sandwich. The egg and sardine sandwich was a curious combo if you look at it. The basic recipe was a mix of mashed hard-boiled eggs and sardines spread between two slices of bread. It was created around the 1920s and continued to be very popular with Americans till about the 50s, and it isn't hard to see why. Most protein sources were incredibly scarce at the time. Grabbing some ham or turkey from the supermarket was entirely out of the option, so people had to make do with what was available. All of that considered, the egg and sardine sandwich was not bad, considering what they were working at the time. It ticked all the boxes. It was easy to get, it was easy to make, it was very affordable, and it was healthy. It was all the people of that time who led busy lives and were doing their best to get by. As other options for protein started to get more affordable in the 60s, people didn't need an egg and sardine sandwich anymore. This treat ticked all the boxes, yet it ended up mostly forgotten, just like the next sandwich on the list. 9. Mock chicken sandwich. The mock chicken sandwich was another one of many sandwiches made for the hard times. In this case, the Great Depression. This economic disaster left a lot of Americans poor, and good food a luxury. Things like chicken and meats were mostly out of the reach of the regular person. People started to draw from their leftovers to get by, and that's how sandwiches like the mock chicken sandwich was born. It was a pretty easy treat to make, perfect for the hard-working lifestyles most people led at the time. For the spread, you'd need 2 finely chopped tomatoes, a beet egg, grate cheese, an onion, some finely chopped herbs, butter, and a pinch of salt and pepper. Cook that over a pan, put it between 2 sandwich buns, and you got yourself a mock chicken sandwich. This was a luxury a lot of the sandwiches of that era did not have, but the mock chicken sandwich actually tasted great. but not good enough to make people abandon the real thing when it came back. The moment people could make actual chicken sandwiches, mock chicken sandwiches became redundant. Nevertheless, it was an incredibly creative meal for the time, much like the next sandwich on the list. 10. Peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich. The peanut butter and mayo sandwich was just another one of many interesting combinations that came out of the 1920s. A popular story for its creation was that it was made in 1929 as a means to feed streetcar workers during a strike. In the next decades, the sandwich would explode in popularity. It was what parents would give their children at breakfast and pack for them to school. You'd see it at the picnic tables, the lunch tables, and the dinner tables. Why? It was really cheap, really easy to make, and it didn't taste bad either. At first, peanut butter and mayonnaise is an odd combination, but that's until you try it. The sweet pop of the peanut butter perfectly complements the sour tang of the mayo, creating this world of flavor that just exploded in your mouth. As people started to shift away from more unusual flavors with time, the peanut butter and mayo sandwich was gradually replaced in American households. It was pretty amazing for how simple it was, but just like the next sandwich on the list, it was no match for the changing times. 11. Chicken liver sandwich. This sandwich might not be the favorite it used to be in the 50s, but it's a regular fixture of the odd bar across the country, so it's safe to say it hasn't been completely forgotten to time. It's a little bit harder to make than most of the other sandwiches on the list, but if you're willing to take your time with it and you've been trying to expand your palate, this is definitely something you should try out. For the stuffing, you need some chicken liver, whole wheat, some butter, an iceberg lettuce, a little mayonnaise, and some sliced tomatoes. You start by marinating the chicken liver in salt, garlic, and lemon in a refrigerator for a few hours. Heat up a pan and cook the chicken liver for a few minutes. Cut the liver into small pieces, toast the bread or sandwich buns, layer it with some mayonnaise, then some lettuce. Add in your liver, top it off with tomatoes and viola. There you had it, your chicken liver sandwich. It was a great sandwich for sure, but it started to fall out of popularity because of how long it took to make, and a shifting taste for simpler flavors. If you are to say the chicken liver sandwich still gets a lot of love at dinner tables regardless, the upcoming sandwich is a completely different story. 12. Banana and mayonnaise sandwich. This probably sounds like the kind of combo that is a disaster waiting to happen. To most people, attempting to combine mayo with a fruit like banana would trigger alarm bells. But if you're willing to experiment a little like the Southerners that made it, you just might find that you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's just one of the many comfort foods from the region of America famous for comfort foods, and you'll find that they didn't miss with this one either. It's a pretty simple sandwich. Just layer some bread with some mayonnaise and sliced banana and you were good to go. The combination was a weird one for sure, but it went together really well. The sour tanginess of the mayo complemented the sweetness of the banana perfectly. Just like with most fruit and mayo combos of the 50s and 60s, time wasn't really kind to this sandwich. As people started to develop an aversion for more unusual food combinations and unconventional flavors, this interesting recipe was left behind. It was incredibly flavorful for a simple sandwich, just like the next sandwich on the list. 13. Potted meat sandwich. Potted meat was another tasty relic of the early 20th century when preserving meat was a challenge. The base of the sandwich was potted meat, basically meat boiled until incredibly soft. It was popular in those times because it kept better than regular meat and was much easier to preserve. All you needed to do to make it was layer some butter and your potted meat over 2 slices of bread. Easy peasy, right? Potted meat was everywhere at the time, so this was a pretty nifty way to put it to use. It started to fall in popularity as better methods of food preservation became more accessible, and making potted meat didn't make a lot of practical sense anymore. It's still a pretty convenient sandwich option to try out if you're looking for something simple to get you through the day. It might not taste amazing, but it's nowhere near tasting terrible either. Just like the next one on the list, potted meat sandwich just might end up being your snack of convenience. You'll never know till you try it out. 14. Deviled ham sandwich. The recipe for the delight first became a hit with the American public towards the end of the 19th century. The sandwich's spicy deviled ham spread became incredibly popular in the 1860s for its long shelf life and great taste. All that said, it was still a pretty complicated sandwich to make. You'd need to make some ground ham, get some mayonnaise, yellow mustard, chopped garlic, chopped onions, some black pepper, some paprika, and a pinch of celery salt, and mix it all together till it was perfectly combined. And after that, you still needed to let the mixture sit for 2 to 3 hours before it was ready to serve. Deviled ham sandwich had its heyday in times when sandwiches were seen as more of a homemade meal than a convenient fast food option. As that started to change, it started to gradually fade away from American dinner tables and then their minds. You'll hardly see anyone making this sandwich today. Such a time-consuming meal just isn't suited for the fast-paced nature of modern life. The spread hasn't completely faded into obscurity outside of the US, though, and is still occasionally enjoyed by people looking for a quick, tasty fix all over the world. The next sandwich on the list wouldn't prove to be as memorable. 15. Cheese and Marmite sandwich. This is probably one of the most interesting sandwich combinations of any era. You have to wonder about the mind that thought of layering some cheese with Marmite and calling it a day. And if you're wondering what Marmite is, it's a thick, syrupy spread made from yeast extract. It had a pungent, slightly savory aroma and a salty taste. Naturally, for something with such a bold taste, people at the time either couldn't get enough of it or hated it with nothing in between. The sandwich is another one that were born out of necessity in the early 20th century, when healthy food options and people had to make do with what was available. That didn't stop it from tasting amazing, though, and if you're curious about how the cheese and Marmite combo would taste, then you should definitely try it out. The experience is life-changing if you are open-minded enough. As food became less scarce and food options became more diverse in later decades, the cheese and Marmite combo fell out of favor with the American public, a story not too different from that of the next sandwich on the list. 16. Cold meatloaf sandwich. If nostalgia had a taste, it would probably be something like the cold meatloaf sandwich. It can't be just a coincidence that it also happens to taste better the longer you let it sit too. You won't be shocked to hear that this one also originated from the South, because it's definitely up there when it comes to comfort foods. Every bite into the toasty meat and melted cheese combo feels like a warm hug from a loved one, a loving embrace from the past. The rich mix of contrasting flavors was what made it so appealing to people back in its heyday in the 50s and 60s, although it could be a little tricky to balance all the ingredients. Making it was simple enough. All you needed was some turkey meatloaf, some white bread, a little butter, some cheese, and a dash of mayo to top it off. If you wanted something a little spicy, you could add on some toppings like ketchup, some tomatoes, a little hot sauce, or a few strips of bacon. It's all up to you. The cold meatloaf sandwich fell out of style as sandwiches became more of a fast food option, and people started to gravitate towards simpler recipes. But our next entry took a completely different path. 17. Corned beef tongue sandwich. This is probably the most high-effort sandwich on the list, and one of the more unusual meat combinations too. It's easy to wonder how it became as popular as it was now, until you remember that sandwiches were once considered a home-cooked staple and a fine dining option, not just the fast food offering they've become in recent times. It's definitely not for everyone, as it's quite complicated to prepare, but if you have the skill and some time to spare, you'll quickly find that the sandwich you'd otherwise have written off is actually a masterpiece. There had to be a reason why it was as popular as it was in its heyday, right? The list of ingredients you need to whip it up is a little long, but stay with me here. Some beef tongue, a couple of carrots, some chopped onions and garlic, some red pepper, salt, black pepper, ground turmeric, mushrooms, lettuce, parsley, lime, bell peppers, paprika, and tomato is all you need to make the perfect corned beef tongue sandwich, with a little mayo to top it all, of course. Corned beef tongue sandwich was high effort, but it was also high reward. It's a shame that the modern fast-paced lifestyle pushed this delight into obscurity, not too different from how it did the next sandwich on the list. 18. Chicken and cranberry sandwich. The chicken and cranberry sandwich was some classic American cuisine. It really took off in America at the start of the 20th century, and it's easy to see why. The interesting mix of sweet and sour from the cranberry perfectly complemented the savory taste of the chicken at its base. It was part of a larger trend of people experimenting with cranberry recipes at the time, and while that had mixed results in general, this recipe was anything but a miss. It was also a great way to push your leftover chicken to use, but that was just an added benefit, if anything. To make it, you'll need cooked chicken breasts, preferably shredded, mayo, some chopped green onions to garnish it, dried cranberries, a shredded apple, chopped pecans, some lime juice, and lastly, some black pepper and salt to season it. This little unit of flavor faded out of the zeitgeist towards the mid-20th century as people started to develop simpler tastes and sandwiches became more of a fast food option, much like the next sandwich on the list. 19. Scrapple sandwich. The scrapple and egg sandwich is pretty straight to the point in its presentation, but that didn't stop it from packing a world of flavor with every bite. It was popular back in the start of the 20th century when hearty, nutritious meals were more of the norm for the average breakfast. It had everything you were looking for in a proper homemade sandwich: volume, flavor, and nutrition. It was also relatively easy to make, even if it would take you a little time to do so. 20 minutes in total. All you need is some scrapple, some instant flour, some black pepper, a few splashes of butter, a couple slices of cheese, some eggs, a few slices of white bread, and some freshly squeezed orange juice to top it all off. It faded in popularity towards the end of the century as people started to prefer simpler recipes, and sandwiches became more of a fast food option. Just like the next sandwich on the list, though, it's still a staple in a lot of American homes today. 20. Head cheese sandwich. This sandwich was probably as close to fine dining as it gets on the list. Hog's head cheese is a gourmet serving in itself. The cold cut of pressed and cooked pig parts is probably the last thing you'd expect in a sandwich, but here we are. It was a really popular sandwich offering in the 20th century, and it was also another Southern classic, so you can be sure it tasted amazing. Think of this sandwich like a makeshift charcuterie plate, with the creamy mayo, spicy mustard, and some pickles to set off the hog's head cheese. The process of cooking it up is a little complex, but it'll all be worth it when it's done. The sandwich naturally fell out of favor as people developed an aversion to unusual ingredients like hog's head cheese and long, complicated cooking processes. What a yummy list! So which of these old sandwiches do you want the recipe for? Did we miss out on anyone? Let us know in the comments below.